everyone. Welcome to our Time to Profit sales talk. If you are new around here, let me introduce myself. My name is Christy, and I help business owners and salespeople generate more consistent cash flow and predictable profitability in their businesses by finding and winning the clients they most want to work with, or another way of saying to embrace sales strategies that are really effective for them. So I'm going to date myself here. I'm going to turn this one light off. It is giving me a big shadow. So do you guys, any of you, please comment if you do so I don't feel so bad about myself. But do you remember Jock Jams? Oh man, it was like this CD that I used to play all the time when I was in high school. And there was a one song on there that was like, action, action. A-C-T-I-O-N. So there's my singing, but that is what we're going to be talking about today. We are going to be talking about how to get into action and take action so that you can start creating more consistent cash flow in your business. So here's the deal. Last week, I talked a lot about some foundational pieces, the 4 foundational things you need to have in place before you start selling. But what I want to do today is give you some tools to overcome procrastination once those things are in place and actually get into action. Because if you don't take action, it doesn't matter how good those pieces are. It doesn't matter how awesome your plan is. You're not going to find and win more clients. You're not going to get more consistency in your revenue. You've got to do something with what you're putting in place. There are 3 things that really stop people from taking action in their businesses when it comes to proactive sales. So the first one is overwhelm, right? This feeling of like, whoo, there's just too much going on. I don't have time. The second one is perfectionism. And the third one is fear. So I'm going to dive into all 3 of these today. But one thing I want to say is that fear and discomfort is really the main thing that stops people from acting. And overwhelm and perfectionism are ways that we kind of deal with that fear and discomfort, but we actually want to talk about and address the overwhelm and perfectionism too. So none of these are in a bucket. They all influence each other, but I want you to start breaking this down so that you can start taking action and start generating that consistency that you want in your business. Okay, let's go for it. So let's talk first about overwhelm. This is what happens, right? We can probably all relate to this. I know I can. But when you're so busy with everything on your plate and the thought of getting it all done, that doing it all stops you from doing any of it. So I know from personal experience that the longer my to-do list is, the less likely I am to do any of it. That I look at and I'm like, I'm just going to go to Target. You know what? I really need to do laundry. Those dishes really need to get done. It's like my brain can't even process it, so I don't even start. So if you experience this, you're not alone. This happens to me a lot. So I've had to really think about, okay, how can I break this down? How can I make it simple? How can I make my goals so small that I can actually take consistent action? Because consistency is one of the pillars of really creating that predictable profitability and consistent cash flow. If you want consistency in your business and your cash flow, you have to be consistent in your actions and how you're treating your business. But if you're overwhelmed, it's going to be really, really hard to do that. So what are you going to do? If you feel like you're in that overwhelmed space, how can you move past that? The first thing is make your goals smaller. Break down your to-do list. Take things off, right? I've been using the full focus planner, really that idea of what are the 3 most important things I need to do this week? What are the 3 most important things I need to do today? When I feel myself getting overwhelmed, even with that, I will often say, what's the one thing I need to do today? What's the one thing I need to do? My one thing. What's my one thing I'm doing in my business? And I actually have some extra copies. They're not right in front of me, of the one thing. So if you are listening to this, I like prizes. I can tell you some stories about how much I like prizes. I will do crazy things for prizes. That sounds worse than it is. It mostly involves the gym. If you share where you're getting stuck in your business, which of these areas of overwhelm or areas of procrastination are kind of getting in your way, you're going to be entered to win a free copy of the one thing. So I will send that out to someone who comments in the comments below. So share where you're getting stuck. Okay, back on topic. Make those goals smaller, right? Make small goals, But before you break down your goals into small things, so the example I use that instead of sending emails to 20 prospects, maybe your goal should be send emails to 2 prospects today. Like, so simple, right? Make it easy. But here's the thing. If you don't have those prospects' email addresses, if you don't have a draft script or email to send them, all of a sudden it doesn't seem so simple to send those 2 emails. So the step 1 is to really get the email address, and step 2 is to draft the script. We talked about creating scripts and building out prospect lists last week. So if you missed that, go back and watch it. And then step 3 is to send it. So break those goals into smaller component pieces, and you'll realize that oftentimes there's more to it than you're realizing, which is why that overwhelm is happening. So if you've done steps 1 and 2, right, then sending the email will take no less than 5 minutes. And then it's not a big deal. So just think about, if you're constantly getting to overwhelm, what can you take off your list? What really needs to be done? Where do you need to focus? What are the pieces that need to happen first underneath each of those? Because those might actually be the action items, not the big thing in and of itself. So I really underestimate how long things take and how much I can do. So this is a super, super important one for me that I'm constantly having to practice so that I don't get into that place of stuck and overwhelmed. So if you find yourself, though, that you've done all this, you're not in overwhelm anymore, you're like, yeah, I broke it down, it's so simple, I can do this in 5 minutes, but you're still not doing it, that leads us directly into our second thing that we're talking about that often keeps us stuck in procrastination, and that is perfectionism. That, well, I don't quite know exactly if this is the right person I should be talking to. Maybe my email's not exactly the way that I want it to be. How could I say this better? And until I really want to get it perfect, right? That I don't want to mess up this chance, and it might be my only chance, so then I don't do anything. This is a good trigger that you're getting into perfectionism. I am always saying that good is, or right, good and done is better than perfect and incomplete. And a lot of times things aren't going to be perfect, but here's why it's so important to get into action. That's how we make things better. You're going to hear things when you're on the phone with a prospect that are going to sound different than you thought they were. You can go back and rework that. You're going to get feedback when you send an email where people maybe have a question like, what do you mean by this? Okay, I need to rework that. Or I'm having a conversation with somebody and it's not resonating at all. Okay, what might I say differently? Or all of a sudden I say something and people hear what I'm saying totally different. I'm going to totally go back and put that in, right? So until you get into action, you are not going to get the information that you need to make it great. It's still not going to be perfect, but the more you take action and make adjustments, the better it's going to become. But if you wait until it's perfect, you're never going to get that market feedback that's going to help you to actually continue to adjust and get stronger in your messaging. Okay, so this is really, really important. If you're waiting for it to be perfect, just accept that it's not going to be, and it's going to be okay, but how you're going to get closer to perfect is to get feedback. And you can't get feedback until you actually take action. Are you with me on this? Okay. The third thing that I talked about is fear and overwhelmed. I have talked about this a lot here at Time to Profit because sales is one of those things that takes a lot of vulnerability. You are taking a leadership role when you're doing sales. You're putting yourself out there, and you're doing that to make the lives of your prospects easier. But when you're doing that, it can feel uncomfortable. It can feel uncertain. There are times when I still go to pick up a call to make cold calls for a client, the phone, and I feel uncomfortable. But here's the thing, the more I do it, the more comfortable I get. And the first call I make of the day is always going to be more uncomfortable than the last call I make during the day. And so you've just got to understand that fear and discomfort doesn't mean that you shouldn't be taking action. It just means that you're doing something new, you're putting yourself out there, and you're taking a leadership role to help your prospects. All of these are good things. There is no way to grow without being uncomfortable. We've all heard this before. This is new, but somehow we try to avoid it. And so just celebrate that when you feel the fear and you do it anyways, Give yourself a chance to celebrate and succeed. And then that goes back to those small goals and getting rid of the overwhelm. That, okay, I made 2 calls, or I introduced myself to 2 new prospects today. I'm going to celebrate that and acknowledge that. And I'm going to recognize maybe I felt uncomfortable, but I did it anyways. I will tell you, I have been doing sales for 15 years. I love sales. It has been such a blessing in my life. I think that sales is such a powerful tool for creating empowerment in our lives and being of service to others. But I have to remind myself of this stuff sometimes. I was at a networking event recently, and 2 of my good friends were there, and I was sitting with them and chatting with them, and I'm like, oh, yeah, I'm here to meet new people. I'm going to have to go up and introduce myself to people I don't know. Of course, I'd rather sit here and have a glass of wine with my 2 friends. But that's not going to help me grow my business. That's not going to help me get the waiting list that I want. That's not going to help me reach my revenue goals. So I just said, hey, my goal is to meet 2 new people. I'll be right back. And I just literally, as I was getting up, I hadn't even left the table. I started a conversation with a woman sitting next to me. We had a great shared connection. We had a great conversation. It was phenomenal, but I had to get outside of my comfort zone to do that. And that's what we have to do on a regular, consistent basis. You never get to stop doing this. It doesn't matter. So the things that I want to really recap today, if you're feeling stuck, that I have those foundational pieces in place, but I'm still not taking action, notice if you're in a place of overwhelm. Do you need to simplify the goals? Do you need to make them smaller? Do you need to break them down and start at a different baseline, right? Maybe there's some other things you need first. Break those goals down, make them smaller, focus on 2 to 3 things a day at most, and you will see forward progress. And then the second thing is, am I being a perfectionist? Am I procrastinating because it's not perfect? Because if that's the case, you need that feedback from the market. You're gonna learn so much by doing it. And it's the first time you're following a script and you say it out loud, there's going to be things that you're like, what was I thinking when I wrote that down? Or even when you go to send the email, you're like, wait a minute, this feels totally different than when I was sending it to a fictional person. Make those adjustments, get that feedback, but don't wait for it to be perfect. Don't wait till you have a perfect plan to start, and recognize that it's going to be uncomfortable, and that is okay. I will be back here next week sharing some more sales strategies and tools to help you generate that consistent cash flow and predictable revenue in your business so you can continue to grow by serving more customers. In the meantime, head on over to mytimetoprofit.com. There's a free sales planning tool and checklist that you can go download there. I recommend filling out the sales planning tool quarterly. I do it with all of my clients, and we really get some great strategic direction from that and some insights into what are those areas that we should be focusing on. Again, that's mytimetoprofit.com, and I will see you next week. In the meantime, believe in you.